Yeah. All right. Okay, I'll start sharing my screen. Just a minute. Meanwhile, are there any questions from yesterday's session about text package and drawing and stuff? And also, can someone confirm if you can see my screen and if I'm properly audible?
Yeah, both.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Miriam. Right. So I'm assuming there's no questions from yesterday. Even if you do, please do approach us and we'll help you out with it. So today we'll be starting off with Beamer, which is a package essentially used for making your presentations in LaTeX. Right. So this is what we did yesterday. It's just a quick recap. We used Tix package to draw certain figures in LaTeX. Right now, I'm gonna create a new file, and I'll call this intro dash to dash beamer dot tech. Okay, and I'll create it right here. It's completely empty right now, so there's not really much of things to see here. Okay, now so far we've been doing. Let me hide this. It's not necessary. Right now, so far we've been dealing with articles. Right, the document on the right side that you see with page numbers and everything, that is an article. Right, we specified it's an A4 paper article and so on. But from now, I mean, for today's presentation, for today's talk, we will be using something different. Right, we will be using a document class called Beamer, right? Beamer sort of a thing. Now, this is a package that is for making your presentations in LaTeX, right? You can have a title page like you do for article. You can have logos. You can highlight important points and so on. Now, the difference between Beamer, your PPTs and your papers are quite obvious, right? Your PPT you cannot publish, you cannot submit to a journal or something like that. A PPT is something that you use to present to others what is it that you've worked on, right? And that's exactly why we're going to learn Beamer today. Uh, so without further ado, let's get started, right? So we're going to use the document class Beamer. That's something that you are familiar with, right? Document class is how you begin every LaTeX document. And the next is begin document and end document, right? That's obvious. That has to be there everywhere, right? But here's where things get a little different, right? So let's say first we want to get our, oh, you know what? Let's just say hello world and then see what we get out of it. I'll compile it and let's see what we get. Now you see this has now become a single slide. Let me zoom in a little bit, right? This has become a slide now. Instead of an A4 paper or something, it's become a slide by default. You didn't have to mention that it's a slide or something like that. Beamer takes care of it, right? So this is how a Beamer slide looks like. And since you're all from the Windows background, what you call a slide in PowerPoint, in MS PowerPoint, in Beamer we call it a frame, right? So instead of saying slides, we're going to call it frames. Okay, FRAME, frame. And every new slide is going to be used or is going to be called upon by using the keyword frame and so on, right? So let me just get rid of hello world for now, and then I'll type a little bit of code, and then we'll see, right? So the first thing that we're going to be trying is to make the title frame, right? Or the title page, if you want to sort of find an analogy with the article that you've been working with. Now for that, it's quite simple, right? You just say title and say, I'll just say introduction to Beamer, right? And then you say who's the author, right? I'll just put my name, and then you can also put the institute here, right? Institute, right? And I'm going to say Nakshatra, and then finally date. I'll just say Sep 2021, right? I'll just keep the hello world for now, right? But you see, I cannot really get that title. Let's see if we get this title thing first, right? Do we get the title page? We see that we do not get the title page. Reason being, we haven't told LaTeX to build the title page. We haven't told LaTeX to build the title frame, right? So as soon as we begin a document, the very first thing that I want is my title page. So I'm going to say \frame, right? And in that, I'm going to say title page. Now let's compile it and then let's see what we get. Now you see we have another slide right on top, which has the title, the author, the company or the institute, and the date, and so on. Right? Instead of this, I think you can also use today. Not sure if that works still for me. I don't know. Yeah, so it says September 18, 2021 and so on. And then in the next slide is where we have hello world, right? So that's gone by default. We will, sort of become a little more flexible there, and we'll come back to that, right? So, when I say flexible, what we're going to do is we're going to put this in a new slide explicitly, right? So I'm going to say begin frame, which means I'm starting a new slide. Now you can give a frame title here, but for this one, I'll avoid it for now, right? I'll just avoid this for now. And then in begin frame, I'm going to say hello world. And let's see what the difference is. You see now, since it's my new slide, everything starts from the center-ish position. Right now, my title slide is as it is, title frame is as it is. But my new frame has this thing starting from almost the center of it, right? So that's the difference between just putting it and putting it in a new frame in Beamer, right? So that's how you get started off with. Now I will put a frame title, right? I want a title to this particular frame, right? So I'm going to put a frame title saying introduction and compile it. And you see this particular frame signifies something, right? This is the introduction slide or introduction frame, right? So a frame title sort of helps you make your presentation look a bit more prettier in the sense that you can differentiate between what each frame is for and so on, right? So a frame title just makes it looks good. Now let's say that you have a lot of content, right? You have a lot of content and you cannot hold it in a single slide, but it's still part of introduction itself, right? Like introduction itself, you wanted to maybe go for like 2 slides or so on, right? In that case, what you can do is after you begin your frame in square bracket, you say allow frame break, okay, which means you can explicitly break the frame, right? And make sure that some content goes into the next frame as well. Now let's see the difference, right? Let's see what happens when I say allow frame break. Nothing else has changed. I'm just saying that for this particular frame, I can break it, right? I'm going to compile it now. There seems to be some problem. Does it allow frame breaks? Allow frame breaks. Apologies for that. Now you see when I say that the frame can be broken, this automatically changes to introduction 1, the Roman number 1, right? So that means that you can have breakage of slides and so on. So what I'm going to do is I'll show you how to break the slide. So in my very first frame, I have hello world. Now I want to break the frame break, right? And in the next one, I want a mathematical expression, right? Let's say E equals mc squared, right? Let's compile this, see what we get. Right. Now you see E equals mc squared hasn't come in the first frame, right? Because in that particular section, I only have hello world, right? After the frame break is where I have E equals mc squared, and that's why it's been pushed to another slide. And you can see this, since I've broken the same introduction frame, you have it as introduction 2 and so on. Right. So with this, you can have multiple frame breaks. Like for example, if you have a section that you want to go for several things and you want to just make sure that you are keeping a track of how many slides of introduction do you have, you can do this. Or another method of doing this is just get rid of allow frame break, right? Which means you will also get rid of this, right? And that also will be gone. And you can just begin another frame, right? And then again, just call it introduction, right? And then here I'll put my mathematical expression, E equals mc squared. And in this case, you'll have two separate frames with introduction and introduction. Right? You can do this as well. It depends on you, right? These are two ways of going about it. But I find this to be a little tedious. Reason being, I have to again and again call begin frame, introduction, end frame, and so on. I find frame breaking to be a bit more easier than this, right? But then it's left up to you to go ahead with however you want it to be. Okay, so that's about it. And then now we'll come back to the way the presentation looks like. Now you see it's quite bland, right? It's very plain. It's quite boring. right? There's like just white color all around, and then this is like the title is in blue color, and there's nothing else really, right? So what we want to do is we want to change the appearance of our entire presentation, and I will be showing you what I like, right? This is called the Madrid package, or the Madrid theme, right? These are called themes, and so I'm going to say use theme Madrid. Now let's see the difference with this, right? Right now, without compiling this, you see that the presentation is quite whitish, boring, plain sort of a thing. I will now compile it using the Madrid theme, and then you see now there's a lot of color added to this, right? There's like a blue thing for the title, and then there's my name at the bottom, and the institute I work for, and then the title is here again, and then there's the date, and it tells me how many slides there are in my presentation and so on, right? This is the first of the 3 slides, this is the second, this is the third, and so on, right? This makes it look a little better, right? This is the Madrid theme, right? And for the rest of the presentation today, I will be sticking to the Madrid theme. Okay. All right. Now we'll come back to the table of contents, right? This is something that is quite mandatory for your presentations, right? You want to let people know what you're presenting and what all will you be presenting, right? They should sort of get an idea as to what are they going to sit for over the next 20, 30 minutes or 1 hour, or whatever it is, right? So table of contents is quite important. And so what we can do is first this introduction frame, right? I will put it under a section called introduction, right? Now I want my table of contents to be in another frame, right? So I'm going to say begin frame. I can, and I'm going to call this the table of contents, right? And how do you get your table of contents is quite simple. You just say backslash table of contents, and I will compile this, and then let's see, we should have a section called introduction in our table of contents. There we go. Right? So our very first section is introduction. Now you see I haven't used hyperref or anything, but as I hover over the section introduction, my cursor changes. So you can navigate throughout your presentation using this, right? This is by default inbuilt into Beamer package. When I click introduction, it goes to the very first frame of introduction and so on, right? So that's one advantage. You don't have to explicitly use hyperref so far, unless you're putting links and it leads to external links and everything. But otherwise, it's all internally linked, right? So you don't have to worry about that. Okay. Now, once we're done with this, we're going to add another section. And I'll call this mathematical expression, right? And then I want a frame in this, right? I'll call this math equations. And the section name and the frame title can be different. That's again left up to you. Einstein's relation from GTR, which is the general theory of relativity. I'll just put in a random equation here. Right? G. I hope all of you are already comfortable with mathematical expressions. If not, I would highly recommend that you get used to it as soon as possible. Right? This is a very simple thing. Now we have a new section here, right? And we have a new frame. But I want, let's say, 2 frames. So I'm going to put allow frame break. Allow frame breaks. And I'm going to say frame break here. And I'll put another relation. The mass energy equivalence is E equals mc squared. Now, as you would all expect, this is gonna break the frame, right? I'm gonna have to. So in my table of contents, I have a new section called mathematical expressions, right? So I can navigate to that, and my very first frame has. I didn't break the frame apparently. Okay, I'm not sure why that didn't happen. Sure. Oh, now it did. I don't know, some compilation error probably. Right. So we could navigate to our mathematical expression section right here, which leads me to the very first frame of mathematical expressions. And the title, since I put math equations, I have math equations, and I had allowed for frame break. So I have math equations 1. And then that's the first expression. And then we have the second. After breaking the frame, we have the second expression, the mass energy equivalence is equals mc squared and so on. Right? So everything else that you've learned in LaTeX is the same, right? The way you put mathematical expressions, the way you would insert images. I won't be going through all of that. It's the absolute same process, right? Now, what I'm going to do next is I will tell you how you can sort of keep track of where your presentation is by displaying your table of contents before every or after every section, right? So let's say, like, for example, this is how you would see my page, right? Let me zoom in, right? This is what you would see very first, my very first slide. Please excuse me for 1 second. Yeah, no, sorry about that. All right. So what I was saying is, this is what everyone would see when you are presenting your very first PPT, right? You have the title, the author, and everything. And the next, you would show them the table of contents, right? You're going to say, hey, this is what I'm going to be talking about for the next 20, 30 minutes. And, you can just go through that. And the very next thing is the first section called introduction, right? But let's say that you have 5 slides in introduction and then you forget what your next section is, right? So what I would want is to make sure that after I conclude every section, my table of contents is displayed again so that I know what I'm going to talk about next, right? And let me just tell you what I'm trying to say. I mean, show you what I'm trying to say here, right? So what I want is my table of contents to be displayed after the end of every section, right? That's what I want. And this is how we're going to do that, right? We're going to say backslash. Oh, I'll just get rid of this table of contents for now. I'll just cut it, right? I'm not deleting it, I'm cutting it, right? Now backslash at begin section, right? I want it to be at the end of every section, which means it's the beginning of the next section, right? That's the basic logic of it, right? At the beginning of every section, open curly brackets, I'll just get some space between them. I am gonna, put my frame there, table of contents. But a slight change is not just any table of contents. I will want the current section of it. I would want to display the current section of my particular frame, right? So let's just quickly compile this and see what we get. Might sometimes take twice to compile it. It's always a good idea to compile a document twice because, table of contents sort of requires double compilation to show everything in your document and so on, right? Okay. So, right. Introduction to Beamer, that's our title and everything. Okay, so let's do this, right? Since this isn't what I exactly wanted, I will add another frame, begin frame, again, table of contents, right? But this is the one that is only displayed once at the beginning of the presentation, right? And I'm going to say table of contents, nothing with it. Let's compile it again. And I'll double compile it just to make sure everything's fine, right? Coming back to it again, we have introduction to Beamer, our title, our the title page, the title frame, and then we have the table of contents. So here's where you're going to talk about whatever it is that is there in your presentation, and then you start off. You can say that, hey, I'm going to start off with introduction, right? And then you go to the next slide, and then you have introduction, hello world, and then so on. Now, let's say you had 5 slides here, right? You had 5 slides of introduction to your particular topic, and you forget what your next section is, right? So the very next slide tells you what your next section is, right? So you're going to say, hey, now I'm done with the introduction, and now we're going to talk about mathematical expressions, right? So that sort of helps you recollect your entire thing, right? It helps you recollect what your next section is, and then you can go ahead to the next slide and say, hey, so this is math equations, Einstein's relation, and then we have the mass energy equivalence and so on, and the end of your presentation and so on, right? So this is the code that helps you print your table of contents like this at the beginning of every section, right? So that's what we meant at begin section, and that's why we have this here. at the beginning of introduction section, and then we have this thing again here at the beginning of mathematical expressions. So the current section takes care of which section you are at right now. Is it the introduction? Is it the mathematical expressions? It takes care of that. Right? Any questions so far? Okay. All right. So seems like there's no questions. I'll just have a quick sip of water, and we can proceed to checking out a few effects that we can have in LaTeX. For example, the order of displaying a few bullet points, for example, something like that. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some space for myself here, and then I'm going to say we can I should probably put it under a section. So I'm going to say section effects, special effects, right? And then begin frame. I'm still going to call this special effects. Right? So what we'll first do is we'll just get a list of things, right? We'll just get a bullet point kind of a thing, right? So I'm going to say begin itemize, right? This means this is an unordered list. You're going to have bullet points, not numbers, right? If you wanted numbers, then it's going to be enumerate. I hope you're already familiar with it. I'm just going to say item, let's say item 1, right? And then item 2, then item 3, and then item 4, right? So let's just compile it, see what we get. From now on, I'll be double compiling everything just so that, table of contents is taken care of. Just to be on the safer side. Now I can go to the top of my presentation, right? I can go to the table of contents. I just click on special effects and it takes me to that particular section right here, right? So that's that. Um, Now, what we're going to do is we're going to add a few effects, right? Let's say I don't want it to display 1, 2, 3, 4 together, but rather I want it in a different order, wherein let's say I want the order to be, I don't know, 1, 3, 4, 2, for example, right? 1, 3, 4, 2, or some random order, right? Whatever I remember. For that, what we're going to do is I'm going to put this special thing between the greater than and lesser than symbols, right? We'll just see quickly what that is. So I'm going to do 1, 3, 4, 2. Right. Oh, sorry, I close this. And I hope I remember it properly. Let's see. And I'm going to compile this. Now, you see what we're doing here, or let's just compile it and then we'll talk about it. Okay, fine. Okay. Now, see what's happening here is, let me switch to a full screen mode here. Right. I hope you can see only the presentation, no code. Can someone confirm?
Yes, yes.
Okay, perfect. Right. So now we're at our section called special effects, and the very first slide has just one item. Right now, the order that we were going is 1, 3, 4, 2. So you have each of those on a different slide. So if you're going in a presentation sense, right, there's a button at the bottom here which will help you shift to the next slide without having to scroll. So I'm going to do that. Right. So so when you're presenting, I'm going to try to put it as a presentation. Right now, we're going to talk about this section called special effects, where we'll have ordered things coming in different, presented or animated in a different order, right? So the first item is item number 1. The next I'm going to talk about is item number 3, right? The next thing I'm going to talk about is item number 4, and last but not least, I'm going to talk about item number 2. So you see with this numbering that we've done here, right? Let me go back to the code. You see this 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now that's just the syntax, the way you have to put it. The greater than and the less than symbols is where you would put the order of where you want it to be. Right. And I will leave it as an exercise to you to figure out if you can do this for everything or is it just for lists like this. if it's just for these bullet points, or can you do this with images, paragraphs, equations, and so on? I'll leave that as an exercise to you, right? But essentially what we're doing here is we are specifying the order of things that have to be displayed, and all of these are put on a different slide together altogether, right? So item 1 is going to be on the first slide. The second thing that has to be displayed is item 3, so that's going to be on the next slide along with item 1. The next that has to be displayed is item 4, so we're going to have 1, 3, and 4 on the third slide, right? And finally we have item 2 displayed last, which so we'll have item 1, 3, 4, and then 2 on the fourth slide. That's what we have here, right? I mean, you probably, right, if I scroll up, we have item 1, then we have 1 and 3, then we have 1, 3, and 4, then we have 1, 3, 4, and 2. That's how they're displayed, right? Even though we named them as 1, 2, 3, 4, they're displayed in a different order. This is what you would have as your animation effect in your MS PowerPoint, right? Where your bullet points are sort of, displayed, with special effects and everything. You don't have that uh, zoom in, zoom out, and rotate and then come and all of that. Those fancy things are usually not here. Reason being, the output of your Beamer is still a PDF, right? Now, if I was to download this particular thing, if I was to download this particular Beamer presentation, it's going to download as a PDF. So you cannot have your graphical images, right? You can't have your GIFs or GIFs, whatever you want to call them. You can have plain images, but you can't have moving stuff. You can't add a video or anything in this thing. Then you would ask, hey, why would I want to use Beamer then, right? I mean, if I can't have a fancy presentation like that, why would I want to use Beamer? The answer so far that has satisfied me is, once you are at a certain level of academics or whatever it is, right? You don't really care about how fancy a presentation is. You rather care about the content of your presentation, right? So let's say I'm doing a presentation on quantum field theory, for example, because that's my field. I wouldn't really care about adding animations and stuff just to show what quantum fields are, right? Because I am at that stage where I would rather want to tell people what actually quantum fields are rather than just showing them animations like any other scipop article or any other YouTube video, right? I mean, they can always go back and check with that, but that's not why I'm presenting this. I want to show them the exact mathematical, let's say, mathematical thing or mathematical expressions behind quantum field theory and so on, right? So in order to do that is why you use Beamer, right? You get rid of the fancy stuff, right? I mean, you can still change around the colors of this, and you can have different themes, you can have different text colors and so on, but you sort of get rid of all those fancy backgrounds and stuff, right? It's kind of left behind. It's like you grow up from that. It's not the correct way to put it, but that's something that I tell myself at least, and I hope it sort of satisfies you as well as to why we use Beamer rather than that. Right. Now there is another way that you can have another special effect, right? So I'm going to have another frame here under the same section, which I'll call the pause effect. Right. You can also have pauses in between. So I'll just type some text in this frame. Right. The text will pause for a while and then continue. Okay. And as of now, it's not going to do anything, right? We just have a frame with this text. Let's just compile. Right, we just have this text in this frame. The text will pause for a while and then continue. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add pauses in between manually. So I'm going to say / pause. Right? And then I'll put another pause right here. Right? So I'll just put them in new lines so that you can see where the pauses are. Pause. I have put 2 pauses right here, and I'll compile this. Right. Now you see what pause does is it actually just puts them in different slides exactly like we did with these items here, right? So part of your assignment is done, part of your exploration part is done right here, right? I asked you to figure out if you can do this for other things. Yes, you can using something called pause, right? So let me switch to presentation mode again, and I'm going to scroll up all the way. special effects. We're going to come back here and I'm going to switch slides using the button at the bottom, right? Item number 1, we've already dealt with this, so I'll just skip this part. Item 3, 4, and 2. Oops, what happened to that? Right, then we're going to have a pause effect, right? In this frame, pause. You can talk about what's going to happen in this frame. The text will pause for a while, right? Pause, and then continue. Right? So you can do this if you want to stay on a slide for a while, but then you don't want to display the entire text at once. Right? If let's say you have um, a statement, a mathematical equation, then a statement, you can add pauses for those. Right? I won't do that right here, but that's how you can use this pausing effect in your um, yeah, in your presentations, in your Beamer presentations, and so on. Okay. The last thing that I'm going to talk about is important stuff, right? How would you make sure that, let's say you have a very important theorem, for example, how would you display that different from the rest of the thing, right? So the next section that we'll be talking about is important stuff, right? Scroll down, get some space for myself. Right? We're going to talk about important stuff. I'm going to begin a frame. I'll say important stuff again. It doesn't really matter, right? Uh, Here we have a theorem, right? Now, this is what we're familiar with. So I'll do something that we're already familiar with. Right? Begin center, and I'll say for a right-angled triangle with sides A, right, mathematical stuff, A and B, and hypotenuse C, Pythagoras, I don't know the spelling, Pythagoras theorem says, right, A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Right, now we've put all of this in center because this is what we're familiar with. I don't know the spelling of Pythagoras. Can anyone confirm the spelling? Oh, okay. Um, right, so this is what we're familiar with, right? So we have a new section, important stuff. I will go down to it. And we see here we have a theorem, and that's put right in the center. Let me just zoom out a little bit. Okay, this is quite plain again, right? But I want this to be quite important, sort of flash in my face saying this is Pythagoras theorem, right? This is an important theorem, right? So what I'm going to do is I will cut this thing, right, and get rid of the center, and then I'm going to say begin something called a block. Okay. So we have a begin and end block, and at the end of the begin block, I'm gonna say this is Pythagoras theorem, and now I'll paste my theorem, and let's see what difference does it make. Right, I'll compile it. There we go. You see how different that is, right? This is sort of flashed out in your face saying here we have a theorem which is the Pythagoras theorem, and hey, this is dealing with right angle triangles A and B, hypotenuse C, whatever that is, right? So you can use blocks like this to highlight the important stuff in your presentation, right? If you have, let's say, a very important definition, then you can put it in a block. So I'm going to put another block, right? Begin block. And I'm going to give this a name. I don't really remember any definition. Okay, let's just call it Newton's second law. And since this is a very important thing, I've put it under a block, right? And I'm just gonna say that the rate of change of momentum is proportional to the net applied force, or in other terms, for a constant mass, F equals ma. Right? That's what we're familiar with. This is an important stuff, so it's going to come in another block like this, and there we go. Right? Now you can also change this based on your importance, right? So instead of just saying block is quite plain. But let's say this is a very alerting kind of a thing. Then we're going to call it alert block. Okay. We're going to start, begin, and end an alert block. Let's see what the difference is. Right? Now you see it's become red, right? Because alerting is sort of corresponding to the red color. So by default, it gives you this red thing saying alert, alert, this is Newton's second law, right? So that's about it. And there's one more thing that you can do saying, that's another kind of a block with a predefined color, which is an example. Okay. Um, conservation of, I'll just type in conservation of momentum leads to Newton's second or whatever. I don't know. I don't know if it's correct, but or let's say conservation of momentum leads to what does it lead to?
Symmetric acceleration.
Yeah. What does it? What is it? What internal symmetry was it? Translational symmetry.
Yeah.
No, don't worry about it if you don't know this. That's okay. Translation symmetry. Okay, whatever it is. Okay. Now this is an example, and you see examples are put in green color, and so on. So you have these predefined things. I will leave it up to you to figure out how you can change the colors of these blocks in general, right? Let's say you didn't want a blue color plain block. How would you change the color of it? I'll leave that to you as an assignment, right? And that brings me to the end of our Beamer session. I've pretty much told you the basics that you need to get started off with to make your basic presentation, right? So let's just quickly recap whatever it is that we've done. I'll go full screen mode. Right. So introduction to Beamer, we've used something called the Madrid theme. Right. The very first thing is you have the title. Oh, you can also add a subtitle. Right. You can also add a subtitle right here. Subtitle. Right. And you can say this is September latex patch. Right. You can also have a subtitle. You see that comes down there. Okay, so you have your title, subtitle, the author, the institute, and the date. That's quite obvious. This is called the title frame or the title page, right? The next is the table of contents. Now, everything that you do in your Beamer has to be put inside of a frame. So what we do is we use it with a begin and end frame. And then in that, we put our table of contents and every other thing that we've done so far. Okay, now I want my table of contents to be displayed at the beginning of every section. So for that, we use a block of code saying at begin section, display my table of contents for the current section, right? And the first section is introduction, which just says hello world and so on, right? The second section is mathematical expressions. This is just to show that everything that you've learned in LaTeX so far is very well applicable here, right? And then we learned about frame breaks. So you can break your frame into several parts. That's why we have math equations 1. Everything else is the same, the way you put your mathematical expressions and everything, right? Since we used frame break, we have math equations 2 and so on. Then we learned about a special effect, which is to display things in a different order, right? So we had item 1 displayed first, then we went with item 3, then we went with 4, and finally we went with 2. And the next is the pause effect. We didn't, I don't think I put this in the section thing, did I? I did. Why didn't it come in the table of contents? That's kind of weird.
Because you didn't add a section pause effect.
I didn't? Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That comes under special effects, right? That's what I said, right? Sorry, I'm quite forgetful in that sense, right? So pause effect is the other special effect that we learned, where we could pause our text. So in this frame, pause, the text will pause for a while, pause, and then continue, right? And so on. The next is important stuff. How would you differentiate between normal text and some very important theorem or some example or some alert kind of a thing? So we have the first thing is called just a block where you can specify the name and stuff. The second is called an alert block, which by default has the color red. And the third block that we've learned is the example block, right? Which you call using just example, and then you have that in green color by default. As an assignment, like I've said, you can figure out, or you can explore as to how you can change the colors of these default blocks, right? And the last thing that I'll show is that this is not the only option for the theme that you have, right? You can have different themes. I'll just show you one more theme called the Berkeley theme, right? I think the spelling is wrong. That is the spelling. Perhaps. Can you all hear me still?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes, we can hear.
So you see the theme has been changed here. Let me go to the very start. You see the theme has been changed, right? It's no longer the same thing. Now we have some extra part here, and you can see my table of contents at the very first slide. It's sort of different, right? It's a little different than what you've been seeing so far, right? My title and the name is right here, and then the sections, the table of contents are right here, and everything else again, it's as we've defined. It's just the way it looks is quite different, right? So you can use
Vikrant, your voice is breaking.
one sec. How is it now?
Now it's okay, I think.
Okay, yeah, sorry about that. So this is the Berkeley theme. The first that we did was Madrid. The next that we have right now is Berkeley. You can have another one called Copenhagen. I hope the spelling is correct. Right. So Copenhagen again is a little different. We have the table of contents at the top, and then the name and the title at the bottom here, and so on. Right. So there are several other themes that you can go with. I will leave that again up to your thing. Now you can also change the colors of all of these. Right. So let me just go back to Madrid that we had before. Right. This is what we had before. Now I can change the color of this, and I can say use color theme, right? And I will specify it to be something called beaver. Okay, not beamer, it's beaver. Okay, ver. And you see, it's sort of changed. The color theme has changed. It's become gray and red combination, and so on. And but some stuff still remains bluish, right? But it's different now, right? These still remain the same, but overall thing is slightly different, right? So you can go ahead and you can figure out what else can you do with this, right? What other font themes you have, what other general themes you have, what color themes you have. There are a lot, so on and so forth, right? So you can choose whichever you fancy a lot, right? And when we say we can make fancy presentations using Beamer, this is the maximum that you can do, right? You cannot add your graphical images, like I've said before, because the output of your Beamer is still a PDF, right? So when you download this thing, it's still gonna come in a PDF format. You can't have videos for the very same reason. You can have images. You can still use your text package to draw, and you can use your multi-columns. You can insert multiple images, but as long as you put all of them inside frames, right? So what's important is begin and end frame for whatever it is that you're doing, right? And with that, I conclude today's session about Beamer. And if there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Vikrant, I have a
Yep.
doubt. When you're downloading the PDF, do you get it like, as in like, see, if you observe like scroll down, the effects have each and every slide, right? Like to
Right.
get.
So every slide is going to be downloaded. Yes.
Okay, so but when you present, you just have to click on
Yeah.
the.
So let me do that. Right. Let me switch back to the Madrid theme that we had initially, and I'm going to download it now. Right. So it's downloaded. I'll open it right here. So you see, it says that I have 17 slides in total, right? But then if you see the bottom here, it just says 12, right? And that is because of the special effects that we had. So the effects don't take as slides, but then they're still downloaded as separate slides, right? So let me just zoom in. I will quickly go over to the next things and so on. Right? This is all as it is. Now the special effects, I want you to keep your eye on the top number here, which is 9 out of 17, and the bottom number here, which is 9 out of 12. Right? Those are two different things. Okay. You see, I have come to 10 out of 17, but I'm still at 9 of 12. Right. So what Beamer does is it does not count those as separate slides in itself. Right? But your output is a PDF, and that counts the number of pages you have in total. Right? That doesn't bother with what effects have you used in your PDF, but Beamer cares about it. That's the difference. Right? So when you download it, you're going to have 17 pages, but your Beamer actually only has 12 slides or 12 frames. So, right? I hope that clears your question.
Yeah, yes.
Right? So we're still on the 12th frame, but we've gone ahead 4 pages or 4 slides in the actual PDF. Right? So when you're presenting, all people will see is 9 out of 12 only. They're not going to see 12 out of 17. So even if you have, let's say, 54 pages in your document, it might just be just 40 slides, right? You'll never know about that because of the effects that I've added. Right? So this is the 10th frame now. It's going to stay in the 10th frame since we've added 2 pauses. It's still in the 10th frame. Then it shifts to the next frame, the next actual slide, but we've been going ahead in the PDF. Right? That's an internal thing that you don't have to worry about, and so on. This is the final slide, which is the 17th slide here in the PDF, but 12th slide of Beamer of your presentation. Okay, so when someone asks you how many slides do you have in your PDF, you're supposed to say 12, not 17. Okay, no one likes a long presentation, so always say 12. Okay, any other questions? Let me just come back here, see if there's anything in the chat box. Okay. Okay, Sagar, translational symmetry leads to conservation of momentum. Noyes' theorem is vice versa, also conversely also correct, so that's okay. Adding images is the same. I think Sagar's already introduced that, but let me see if I have any images already. I don't think I do. Yeah, let me just probably upload something. Do I have any images here? I'm not gonna put my passport. I'll just pick something from here. Yeah, probably this. Okay, so I have an image called Einstein laugh, right? So I'm just gonna start a new section saying, can you all hear me still? And is my screen still shared? Can you confirm?
Yes.
Yeah, it's
Okay, perfect. So I'm just quickly gonna show you how to add images as well. I put it under a new section, say begin frame. Right? That's what I have to do, and then I'm gonna say inserting images is the title of this frame, right? And this is an image. I'll just add a line, right? And everything else is the same. You can say begin figure, right? Include graphics, Einstein laugh.jpg, and this is laughing Einstein. Get rid of the label. I don't really need the label. And the figure, I have to specify its position. So I'm going to say H and compile it. I'll compile it twice. Just, I think my internet's bad. So, all right. So important stuff here. We had, this is what we did before. Right? Now a new section has been added called images. And there we go. We have Einstein laughing for our presentation, but it sort of goes out of the frame, and that's why this caution that is being given. So I'm going to scale it down to 0.5. Right? I'll reduce it, but I'll reduce its size by half, and this is fine, right? We have a caption as well, laughing Einstein and so on. And that's how you insert your images. Now the same thing also applies for the text package. So let me just begin another frame. And I'm going to say text package. Right. This is a drawing. So then I'm going to say begin figure. Scroll down. But instead of all of this, and here, I'm going to have begin text picture. And then I'll say draw black thick at 0, 0, a circle of radius 1.5, end with a semicolon, but I won't run it because I have to use the package text, right? Otherwise, it's not going to give me an output. And let's just check if everything is fine here. It seems fine. Let's compile it. Oh, let me also add a caption, right? Caption, say a circle, and compile. Let's see if we get it. It's going to take some time. There we go. Right. So again, like I said, everything else is exactly the same that you've learned in LaTeX so far. Adding tables, all of that. All you have to sort of be wary about is what's the size of it. Right. You just have to ensure that it doesn't go outside your frame. Right. Like this image had actually gone outside the frame for its original size. So I had to scale it down to bring it to the frame. So you just have to be careful about that. That's the only thing you have to worry about. But everything else is absolutely same. Right? There's no difference at all. And I hope that answers your question, Sanket.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. And about the citations and references, I think I'm not sure if you already have the PDF to the whole PPT that I did last time, but that was done in Beamer, right? So the procedure for that again remains the same. And I've also put codes in there, so you can refer to that for references and citations and everything. Any other questions that I can answer? Okay. So either you guys have understood everything or nothing went into your head. I don't know which one that is, but I hope it's the first one. Okay, in that case, I'm done with today's session. Sagar, if you want to let something know, then yeah.
Yeah, guys. So did you all understand regarding Beamer? At least use chat box now.
Okay, I see 3 yeses. Thank you, Josiah, Asta, and Gaurav, and Srinidhi.
I hope you all do your presentations in the final week in Beamer.
Yeah, I'd be really happy if you guys did that. You know, it would look really good.
Yeah. Okay then. So
Thanks, Anil.
we come to the end of LaTeX teaching classes since this is the last topic remaining. So if you have any doubt regarding any topic, that means any class we have taught, you can always use the chat box. Okay, I mean not chat box, the Telegram group. Okay, then so coming to your project, keep in mind that September last week we can do the presentation thing, because even if we extend it, we might become busy in other stuff. So I think the last week of September is fine. And then, so any more doubts? So nothing much from my side.
And hey, if you know you are too occupied and you know there is no way that you can make it by the end of September, reach out to us personally, and we'll see what we can do about that. Right? Don't feel stressed that you have to do it at the end of September and there's no other way. If there is absolutely no way that you can do it, then you know reach out to us and we'll try to help you as much as we can. Right? Don't worry about that.
Okay, guys. So all the best regarding your projects. That's all. So can we end the meeting then now? If anyone have doubts, then we can continue.
Yeah, thank you all for attending, and you guys have been great. All the best for your projects. I really hope to see some really good papers coming up. We'll anyway be in touch with the Telegram group, so feel free to ask any questions that you have, or you can reach out to us personally as well.
And one
Thank
last
you,
thing,
and
guys. One thing.
yeah,
We'll be giving you a feedback form today or tomorrow. So please fill that feedback form, and we'll also be taking your details so that we can add it in the certificate. And I think we'll also be giving you a project letter if you complete the mini project thing. So keep an eye so that fill the feedback form. Okay, guys. That's all. Bye, everyone.
bye everyone.